Mass Death in the Jungle, the Jonestown Story. On November 18, 1978, deep in the remote jungles of Guyana, more than 900 people died in a tragedy that shocked the world. Jonestown was a settlement founded by the People's Temple, led by Jim Jones, a charismatic preacher who promised equality, justice, and a utopian society. But behind the smiles and speeches, there were dark secrets. Psychological control, manipulation, fear, and intimidation were the daily reality. Followers were isolated from family and friends, their lives entirely controlled by Jones. They believed they were part of something bigger, a movement that would change the world. Jones was clever. He presented himself as a compassionate leader, fighting for civil rights and social equality. But beneath the surface, paranoia grew. He convinced his followers that enemies were everywhere, that outsiders wanted to destroy their paradise. In 1978, U.S. Congressman Leo Ryan visited Jonestown to investigate claims of abuse. At first, everything seemed calm. Music, dancing, smiles, Jonestown appeared idyllic. But the truth was different. People tried to secretly escape. When Ryan attempted to leave with defectors, he and several others were ambushed and killed at a nearby airstrip. This violent act triggered the horrifying events that followed. Jones ordered his followers to drink poisoned punch, containing cyanide. Over 900 men, women, and children died. Some drank willingly. Others were forced. Some were injected. The tragedy is staggering, but the psychological story behind it is even more chilling. Survivors like Jackie Spire and Eugene Smith describe intense fear, sleep deprivation, and loyalty tests. Members were taught to obey without question, and leaving was considered betrayal. Jones's tactics included public humiliations, staged confessions, and threats of violent punishment. He manipulated religion, ideology, and personal relationships to maintain control. Daily life in Jonestown was tightly structured. Children were indoctrinated and forced to work alongside adults. Everyone's movements were monitored. Meals, chores, and even personal interactions were controlled. Jones encouraged members to spy on one another, creating an environment of paranoia. He convinced people that trust outside the community meant death. Even small acts of disobedience were punished publicly. Yet despite the isolation, there were moments of hope. Some members genuinely believed they were building a better society. They held communal meals, performed public services, and sang together. For a time, life in Jonestown seemed orderly and purposeful. A deceptive calm before the storm. Even within this controlled environment, whispers of doubt began to surface. Some tried to escape, risking punishment or death. Letters smuggled out revealed fear and desperation. When the poisoned punch was distributed, the horror unfolded quickly. The youngest children, some only a few months old, were among the victims. Parents faced impossible choices, trapped between obedience and survival. The tragedy raises haunting questions. Was this purely the result of one man's madness? Or were there broader societal, political, and psychological factors at play? Jonestown highlighted the dangers of absolute power, the vulnerability of isolated communities, and the dark side of blind faith. It forced governments to examine how religious freedom intersects with human rights and safety. Even decades later, Jonestown is remembered not just as a tragedy, but as a complex human mystery. It's a story of hope turned into horror, of promises of paradise twisted into a nightmare, and of a community lost under the shadow of one man. The lives lost, the children who never grew up, the families torn apart. Jonestown is a stark reminder of the human cost of obsession and control. If you are fascinated by real-life mysteries, dark history, and shocking events, Subscribe and join us as we uncover the world's most disturbing and mysterious stories. Because sometimes, reality is far stranger and far darker than fiction.